Good evening, good evening, good evening. It's tour season. Thank you for joining us here on Get Into It with Taz and Chris. Woo. I adore that clip that I just played. I watched that so many times.
Yes.
Oh, she is a beast. She is a beast.
Yes.
Now, there's someone else from another sport that I guess you could say he used to be a beast. He used to be. Now he's just a problem. Unless you've been under a rock, you all know that Phil Jackson has come out with some interesting commentary regarding why he no longer watches the NBA. So there's two clips. And in the first clip, there's someone I didn't think that I would agree with. I don't know what happened. But y'all take a look and we'll come back and we'll talk about it.
Hall of Fame coach Phil Jackson appearing on a podcast and explaining why he's not watching the NBA. Jackson had issue with slogans used in the bubble in 2020. Here's what Jackson had to say, quote, "They had things on their back like justice, and a funny thing happened, like justice just went to the basket and equal opportunity knocked him down. Some of my grandkids thought it was pretty funny to play up those names. I couldn't watch it. It was trying to cater to an audience or trying to bring a certain audience to the game, and they didn't know what was turning other people off. People want to see sports as non-political. Politics stays out of the game. It doesn't need to be there." Shannon, what's your reaction to what Phil Jackson had to say?
Skip, how old do you think Phil is?
How old?
Yeah.
77?
Can you tell dumb politics has always been in sports? Ali. Jack Johnson.
Yeah.
Go back in history of the time. Politics have always been in sports. Jesse Owens.
You remember Phil when he played basketball for the New York Knicks?
Yes.
You know what he was? He was an angry young man, anti-establishment.
Anti-war.
Yep.
Oh, but all of a sudden now.
Dabbled in mind-altering drugs.
Now all of a sudden now, it turns him off. He's like, they're trying to, what do you say, trying to appeal to an audience? I don't know if you noticed this, Phil, but like 75, 80% of the NBA players,
I think he noticed.
that audience, they watching. They didn't need to appeal to Bill.
Yes. I think black players carried Phil to all those rings, right?
But, Skip, it's amazing. My grandfather used to always say, boy, be careful. People might not need you, but they damn sure use you. Shaq can't do anything for Phil. Kobe, rest his soul, can't do anything for Phil. Michael and Scotty and Dennis Rodman and Cartwright can't do a damn thing for Phil.
Yeah.
I don't watch the game. I don't care nothing about what's on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Can they put the ball in the basket? They go dip. I want to see the shot making. I want to see the ball handling. I want to see the creativity. I ain't watching what's on no damn court. I can care less.
Yep.
What's in the end zone? When they put, black lives, whatever they are, equal opportunity and justice and truth, and
Yep.
they ain't got nothing to do. I want to see the man carry the ball, see him catch it, see him throw it. Oh, Tom Brady's a man, I ain't throwing no touchdown. The truth in the end zone. I ain't throwing no touchdown there. Come on, Phil. You sound foolish. But Skip, I didn't really know a whole lot about Phil. Just watched him from a distance. But when he did that piece on LeBron, it told me everything I need to know about Phil.
That's true.
It told me everything he didn't need to say another word. And I already knew. I'm going to take a man how he is.
Yep.
I ain't trying to change him. I'm going to take him as he is.
Yep.
I'm taking Phil Jackson as he is. I see him for what he is. I'm cool with that. I'm just going to move on. But Glad, stay up in Montana. Y'all, you got to do is stay up in Montana. Ain't nobody thinking about no Phil Jackson. Who thinking about Phil? Who? Stay up in Montana, your little cabin or wherever you get your palatial, and you don't have to worry about basketball. It's good without you.
By the way, the first round TV ratings this year for the first round of the playoffs are the best in 10 years. Somebody's watching.
Everybody
Phil Jackson is really saying some things that are disturbing to me. And I'm going to take into consideration that he comes just from a different way of life. He was on a podcast with the great Rick Rubin, said he hasn't watched the NBA since the bubble. He says the Black Lives Matters slogans that the NBA portrayed during the tournament turned him off from professional basketball. People want to see sports as non-political. Hey, Phil, when has sports been non-political? The COVID-19 pandemic brought a lot to the forefront. The United States of America was having a racial reckoning. So people in the NBA, players, black players, players that are immigrants, players that understand what it feels like to be marginalized, felt away. But what I do know is that you have a league that is the majority of black players who have grown up in these neighborhoods where they feel like they should speak out and say something. I don't know too many workspaces that allow you to say how you feel personally. I don't know too many workspaces that say, I understand you're frustrated, so why not share your frustrations and use this platform to talk about why? You guys remember that time where he gave the quote about LeBron James and the guys, the fellas, his friends that he worked with? I'm being careful. He called them a posse. He said, LeBron James and his posse have taken over. Posse? Really, Phil? Really? Phil, you need a lesson in what's going on in today's society. You're coming across like a curmudgeon that is not aware of what's happening in our world today. And I salute Adam Silver and everyone else who said it's okay to talk about things that are uncomfortable right now. It's okay to talk about social justice. It's okay to make basketball a place where people, if they are tuning in to watch, they're gonna have to hear about it whether they wanna watch it or not.
I'm shocked that I agreed with Skip. I never agreed with Skip. I don't know what's going on. I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like Doctor Strange pulled some stuff, and I've been pulled into an alternate. There's no way. But they're absolutely right. Phil Jackson started off just like a lot of boomers, very anti-establishment. Bring down. And there are reports that, he was on the psychedelic train a couple times. But if you notice, as boomers age, they become more individualistic and more do things the way I want you to do it. You fought against having to do things the way that the silent generation and the post-war generation had to do it. Those two generations that gave us the boomers.
Right.
And it's like, Phil, you wouldn't be having these estates, these cottages, this voice, if it wasn't for players of color.
Absolutely. I mean, he played pro ball in New York. It's coming from him, and to know sports as a whole, pro sports, especially since that's the highest platform a lot of athletes have. where else are they going to say anything? Because they're not believed in the streets when they're in dress clothes. To have it on their uniform, it still has to get approved by the league. They can't. These aren't written on with a Sharpie. Football has them in the end zones around the trim and on the backs of the helmets. This is where we're at. There was a time when none of that was on uniforms, or none of that was on the field painted on there. At the end of the day, they're still playing a game.
They're still doing their job.
Right.
But here's the thing. These are the same people that are like, Vive la France, Vive la France. We got to do it like France.
Yeah.
When first of all, France gets the stuff from the Black, brown, indigenous people of color here in the United States, and how we protest and how we have been able to achieve equity. Well, the movement towards equity over the years.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, yeah, do it like them. But when we do it over here, we're savages, we're thugs, we're hoodlums, we've burnt down cities. She was right in the second video. What job allows you to say, hey, y'all aren't listening to us any other way. Listen to us. Our lives matter. You like this game? You want to be able to see this game? How about you do something to keep us alive?
Right. Instead of ending up in the HR department of your job, or dismissed for unruly behavior. There are very few platforms for athletes that are taken serious, other than to be told to shut up and dribble. But yet, if it comes from certain athletes, well, they might have a point. But an athlete of color has such a limited arena to share anything that might be heard by anybody, because if they do it on the street corner, or so and so athlete was, seen at a local restaurant saying such and such, it's always going to be portrayed in a negative way. Because why don't they just shut up and eat?
Yeah, because remember, Colin Kaepernick took his own money and bought suits for men, because we know about all the organizations that do the hair and makeup and give dresses and stuff for the ladies to get a job. He donated hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of suits so that men could get jobs.
Right.
And they demonize it. Why can't he just go and throw the ball? But you say the surprise. And here's the double entendre. Every community is told, pick yourself up by the bootstraps, fix your community. But when they try to fix their community, they're criticized for it. And for y'all, please stop saying the pick yourself up by the bootstraps, because y'all do realize historically that was created as a joke, because it's an impossibility. And before you go, Taz, how is it impossible? Put on a pair of boots, grab the straps, the laces, and try to pick yourself up. You're not going anywhere.
Right.
It was meant to be a joke. And for some reason, people in this country took it literally, like, well, I pulled myself up. But if you're able to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, you are no longer on Earth. You are definitively in space.
Athletes especially, that are paid good money, they're always basically going to be in a no-win situation. Athletes of color, they're always going to be in a no-win situation. If you do good for a community, then, well, you should be doing good for everyone. Why only those communities? Or, if you want to speak out on a hot topic, something that's brand new in the news, something tragic that happened that really calls for attention, well, don't they have a game to play? Why aren't they, focusing on their game that they have coming up? There's always a no-win situation.
And they really kill me with well, why are you helping this community and not my community?
Right,
Let me put you in on a really good secret.
That goes into the all lives matter.
Yeah. Anybody who follows me on Instagram knows that, because it's beginning to become that time of the year. There's a group of ladies that I go to different, like, smaller music festivals with. Now, two of the ladies are called Lisa. So we call ourselves Lisa and their Cult Jam. Okay. One of the leases, we have the exact same birthday. And on our birthday, we don't impose upon each other's day. We publicly say happy birthday to each other. If you don't know us personally, you wouldn't even know that we share that day. If we can do that and the day is technically about the both of us, you can let people have the day, especially since people like Dan Schneider exist.
Yes.
And I know we talked about moving past Dan Schneider, but there were a lot of people who were messaging me who are new to the NFL, new fans, and don't really know the history. So I found this clip, and we're going to go down the memory lane of Dan Schneider.
Dan Snyder is finally selling the Washington Commanders, so now is the perfect time for me to remind everyone of exactly how much of a piece of shit this guy is. In 2009, Washington sued a 72-year-old woman who was a season ticket holder since 1960 because she couldn't pay her season ticket contract. She was a real estate agent and couldn't afford it because of the housing market crash. So she asked if Washington could waive her contract for a year or two. They said no, and bankrupted an elderly woman by suing her for $66,000. Or at least they would have, until the Washington Post picked up the story and guilted them out of it. In 2021, Washington was fined $10 million after an investigation found sexual harassment was running rampant through the organization. Snyder paid over $1 million in hush money to one employee, and a former video production manager said Snyder asked him to edit together a compilation of the most lewd footage from a cheerleader photo shoot and title it The Good Bits. That same year, Snyder underreported ticket sales to the NFL and IRS so he could keep more of the ticket revenue for himself. He also took out a $55 million loan without the team's knowledge and may have committed bank fraud. Hey, remember those report cards the NFLPA put out recently? Yeah, Washington was dead last. They didn't even have warm water. I haven't even mentioned the name change or the actual football teams he put together, but he was pretty garbage at handling those too, and all of this barely scratches the surface of what an absolute loser this guy is. So congratulations, Washington fans. Your long national nightmare is finally over, because
Oh my poor team.
I know that the saying is don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but his mama should have thrown him out with the bathwater. And like I said, that's just scratching the surface. Like, I didn't go into
the name change alone. I mean, aside from him meddling in personnel decisions, player drafts, aside from him so-called putting out this long, hiring a marketing team and then putting out all these public voting things through the Washington Post and through other things up there for the name change. And then when Commanders came out, guess what? Commanders was never mentioned during this whole process. It was never a name that was to be voted on. That's why so many people are upset with the name Commanders, but it goes to show you how much is done behind the scenes based on what he wants to do. And the fallout is just, this is how it is. He thinks he's Teflon Dan. He's running around, who knows in what circle of people, whether they're in football or not. That's always been what was behind Dan Snyder. I mean, we fans of Washington, we're fans of the team. We don't like Dan. We never have, because from day one, this is who he showed to be from day one. He wanted to make money. Ticket prices went up, and
I didn't think anybody could do that worse than Mike Brown.
There was a time when in Washington,
but Dan, he took the cake, and I felt bad for that marketing team, because I've been put in that position where somebody reached out to me for a position and then they nullify it, like all the work that you've done. And people, before y'all go, but Taz, you got paid for it, and my time was wasted because because those of y'all that don't know my history, I had a progression, and PR was part of my progression getting to where I am now. And you all do not know how many people hired me just to say on their website or to put on their cards that they had a PR agent, but went against all of the hard work that you have to do when you're marketing a person. Also, when you're trying to protect the integrity of the name, of the brand, that's a lot of hours. That's a lot of phone calls in the middle of the night. That's a lot of alerts all day long. and you're trying to give them the best light and do market research and put together panels, and then they just go, I wanted this all along. Well, you could have just said that.
Right. Because when the Ravens went to Baltimore, and when they left Cleveland and Modell went to Baltimore, they put out public for the name because they were not bringing the Browns name. And the public voted on Ravens.
Yeah, because Cleveland would have burnt Baltimore down. Because let's not forget, when they did that boot scoop cadoot and didn't properly inform the Cleveland Browns fans, the way they tore that stadium apart. Now, y'all don't tell nobody, but I do know a couple people who have stadium seats from there in their house. When I tore that place apart, and remember when LeBron forgot his own he is from Akron. He forgot Cleveland, Ohio history and decided to wait to the absolute last moment to tell everybody he was taking his talents to South Beach, and they were about to burn Cleveland and Miami down. One thing you don't do, don't play with certain teams. Now, Washington lucked out because Washington's fans seem to be spread out across the United States. The rest of us are pretty concentrated to certain areas. Dan, don't try to buy another team.
Yeah, but remember Baltimore, the original Colts moved in the middle of the night in a moving truck to Indianapolis. Nobody knew they were moving. I mean, they literally had, I don't know if it was 3 men in a truck, but they had them loaded up and gone, and there was staff that worked in the Colts facility that didn't even know they were moving. They were just
a moving truck this yellow. I'm pretty sure that's got to be because they'll move anything.
When you see the Mayflower truck,
they'll move anything. You just give them a $2 tip. They don't care. Because I remember my papa, my maternal grandfather, he had a couple friends, couple of his buddies that were fans, and I had spent the night at their house. I didn't know what was going on. I just woke up because this was before cell phones, so you had landlines. And my grandparents had one of like the first rollouts of cordless phones. And you hear like a voice getting louder coming to you than good. And I'm like, did I wake up like, did I do something? I'm like, is he gearing up to come in here and get it? I'm starting to think, what did I do? What didn't I do? Because I really didn't get in trouble at my granny and papa's house because it was smooth sailing. They was my travel buddies. And we were about to travel at that time. That's why I spent the night. And when he got off the phone, maybe 15, 20 minutes later, his buddies were at the door and me and my granny are looking at each other. She said, what you do? I didn't do nothing. He called me in. And she said, well, your brothers ain't here. Your uncle ain't here. What did you do? And then we figured out it was the football team that escaped in the middle of, no.
Baltimore I mean, just imagine your favorite team. You wake up the next morning and they're gone. Like, you no longer have a team. I mean, Baltimore was furious because they have a history. They weren't always a struggling team. I mean, you go back to Johnny Unitas and all that. Baltimore had a history of football. And that's literally how, I don't know how it all went down with Modell, but that's how Baltimore ends up, because Baltimore as a city itself, they have a pro baseball, pro football. That's literally it. Because most people don't identify Baltimore as a major city. So
but he was a snake. Now, people should, as much, I love my Bengals, but I loathe the Browns. And I'm talking about the Brown family, y'all, where the Cleveland Browns got their original name. People need to take a page out of their book. They started off owning the Cleveland Browns. Things didn't quite work out. So they just came on down I-75 to Cincinnati, and we got the Bengals. They left the team. They left the name. They started fresh. You can do it.
That's why you have the Browns Stadium in Cincy.
Well, not for long.
Right.
We got to change that name.
Well, I mean, that's where it all came from. Yeah, so The fact that Snyder was doing this for so long, and it took literally to the point where the owners had it, and you know how we feel about the owners. That's a good old boy network. For them to get to the point where they're ready to boot out one of their own, that's pretty bad. They did not like Dan.
Yeah, because there's somebody down in Dallas that should have been booted out a long time ago, and the fact that he's saying this,
and we're still going to see some old photos popping up of old Jerry.
Yeah, but you know you've gone too far. When you've outdone Jerry. Like, do you know how hard you have to work to outdo Jerry?
Yeah, because we see photos that pop up of Jerry, young Jerry, down in old Arkansas.
I'm just like,
yeah,
that's a whole lot of effort.
Yeah, and on top of that, everything was always super expensive for the games there. I mean, we went from a city where, and I know they used to play in a different stadium that was actually in DC, sold out season tickets every year, to the point where he let the team be the way they were and always hung around with coaches too long, that people started going to games, and it was like 50-50 at least of the other team's fans. I mean, that's what it turned into. We went from a sold out, proud city, fans die hard, every game sold out, to 50-50 crowd. And that's just unacceptable. That is horrible for a proud franchise.
For a while, if you were doing season ticket packages, not just buying the season tickets, but buying the season ticket packages, excuse me, when it came to Washington, you could include that in your package. And I'm like, you shouldn't be able to do that with somebody else's stadium. Like, if I'm able to get tickets, I can get tickets. But, you know, me and my family, we die hard. And quite a few of my family members have gone to Washington, and I mean, easily got tickets.
Oh, yeah.
Usually when we're going to travel, it takes a lot of pre-planning. We usually have to know somebody in that city to be able to even get a decent price, let alone a ticket. When I can sit in my living room and easily, because we don't just, for those of y'all that don't know, me and my family, it's not like, oh, 1 or 2 people are going to the game. No, it could easily be 15 to 30 of us. If we can scoop up that amount of tickets and we're still all together, there's a problem.
Yeah.
Because we're used to, even when we plan ahead, we might be in the same section, but we might not all be together. And we realize that we're cool with it. Because it is what it is. It's not our stadium. We don't have first choice.
Yeah. And Washington, for those that don't know, the stadium's in Maryland. It's not in DC. It's not in Virginia. I know there's talk about a new stadium being built and all this. And well, at this point, we'll see what a new ownership group does, because that stadium, he's let it fall apart with very little upgrades over the years. I think even FedEx, who is the name on the field, FedEx Field, I think FedEx is I believe ready to pull out of that deal. So we'll see what a new ownership group does. But yeah, this is who Dan is. He lets things fall apart, but increases prices and just takes greed. He'll tell people how much of a fan he is. He's a fan of money. And that's it.
That's all he's got.
Yes.
Real quick updates before we get into the rest of this. Alex Murdaugh, yes, that Alex Murdaugh that's already in prison. He has been indicted on tax evasion charges for not reporting $2 million in the money that he stole. Part of the reason why he got caught in him. And
yeah, and soon talking more about Buster.
Oh, definitely, because they reopened that case. And coming from CBSNews.com, we have yet another Republican throwing their hat in the game because, you know, Trump has so much legal trouble. Asa Hutchinson, the ex-Arkansas governor, launches bid for 2024 GOP presidential nomination. Now, I watched the little press conference. And before y'all come for me, yes, a lot of y'all know that I used to be a cheer coach and I used to be a cheerleader, but something is so cringe when I see a grown person, especially a grown man, that uses middle school and high school cheerleaders for an announcement. Why?
Don would like that. Donnie.
Yeah, we're gonna come to Donnie, but before we get to Donnie, I have a little bit more information on the pillow guy having to pay up $5 million because he ran
My Pillow 2.0.
Yeah. So, I don't know where he getting his $5 million from, because nobody's bought any of his stuff, because I saw quite a few commercials where he's asking for donations of any amount and he's willing to send you different products.
Yes. Yeah, my slippers, my bed sheets, my doggy blanket.
His revisited crack addiction.
I mean, it's just desperation mode out, and it's like, I mean, you just look at it on TV. It's such low quality stuff. I mean, you can just tell that those bed sheets are going to be like sleeping on sandpaper.
My thing is, I don't understand his channel, which is basically just a series of podcasts. Yeah. How we have the same budget, Mike Lindell, and you have a whole production team. But y'all take a look at this and y'all tell us what you think on the other end. We'll see you in 2 and 2. Y'all know how we do.
Hey, everybody. Some interesting news. You may remember that Mike Lindell had a cyber symposium where he promised to reveal all the election fraud from the 2020 election. His cyber symposium was in August of 2021, and he offered a prize. He offered $5 million to anyone who could prove that the data was not valid data from the November 2020 election. There was a catch. In order to claim the $5 million, you had to be an attendee, and this symposium was not open to the public. So you had to be an invited person at the symposium. This is Robert Zeidman. He is an electrical engineer and a computer engineer, and he was invited to the symposium and was there. He's also a professional poker player. Zeidman quickly noticed and was able to prove that the information Mike Lindell presented at the symposium was fake. He did a 15-page report concluding that the data that Lindell had shown was not accurate. Zeidman asked Lindell for his $5 million. Lindell declined. So Zeidman sued Mike Lindell, and the matter was referred for arbitration. And here is the decision from the arbitration panel. After conducting an evidentiary hearing, the 3-judge panel concluded that Zeidman had proven that all of the information provided by Mike Lindell was fake. The panel awarded Zeidman $5 million.
Yes! Yes! Oh, yeah! Can you feel that, buddy? Huh? 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 I have exorcised the demons. This house is clear. Losers, get him out of here! Losers! Let's go, Ace. Losers.
Ace Ventura.
But here's the thing. Yes, all IT people have a bit of researcher in them, but there's certain of us in IT that are of a certain age before the internet is what it is now, and how we had to fight and research and look for stuff just to be able to build code and to help build the internet. Lindell, you invited this man. You had such small parameters that you could have gotten away with this grift and continued it. Mm-hmm. But now you're dead in the water. You give more vigor to Dominion to come through, because they're not done suing people for accountability. Mm-hmm. And I think Dominion is going to keep saying they're not going to settle, and they're just going to keep darn near bankrupting people to the point where they have to let employees go or stop their BS, just like they did with Fox. And now Fox, they're infighting, but we'll get to that in a minute. But you can't mess around even if somebody politically agrees with you. Because I've had these different discussions. My youngest brother is an engineer, and we go back and forth all the time because we both have research minds. I'm just better at the research than he is.
And you have highlighters.
Yeah, plus, I'm a Taurus. He's not. He's ish. But yeah, you can't. That's you can't.
Yeah, I think I saw the guy that won it on. I think it was on either The Beat with Ari or something, where they had an interview with him, and he's like, "Yeah," and then they're like trying to be like he's trying to get money that he supposedly knew. He's like, "What do you mean I won? Like, I'm owed this money." Like, and they basically tried to blow him off, and that's. We've seen this out of many players on the right. The right is just a grift dumpster.
They expected to put a competition out there, and for someone to not be competitive and just pretend and lie and take a few $100 or a couple $1,000s on the side, like, "Oh, thank you, fist bump." Yeah. No, right. No, we are extremely competitive. We are extremely y'all. The United States government yearly convenes hackers and IT personnel, if you choose to go, and people go just to compete. They don't even want government jobs. There are people that put on extensive disguises just to go and compete. There are forums just for IT personnel to try to outdo one another.
Right.
Don't invite us to something with a competition.
Yeah. With a price tag.
Especially when you put million after it.
I mean, now granted, I would have looked at whose name's behind it. So that may have been step number one, but you had someone that was part of the right already. So we get it. Whether you drink a lot of fruit punch or not, you're on the right.
He believed that Mike Lindell was good for it, just like all the people who keep, because Trump has a new set of NFT trading cards that came out, and the previous trading cards have dropped in value, even though you can get the trading cards without paying for them, but whatever. Well, showing y'all how to do it. But Trump says, "Oh, if you order these, you could win a dinner with me. You could win a trip to Mar-a-Lago." No one has yet to win, and they keep doing it.
Yeah, who wants any of that anyways, except for someone who's already given all their money to him anyways?
Y'all, if y'all have not figured out, dinner with Trump is McDonald's or day-old KFC, because if y'all haven't figured out what he serves on Trump Force One, his private plane, which I don't even think technically belongs to him, but that's a conversation for another day. He's posted pictures and forced other people to post pictures online. It's not even fresh KFC. I know KFC when I see it, because even us down in Kentucky, we don't really. Those are the implants that come down here to eat that stuff. No, it's day-old KFC, or he always likes to, like when he was in the White House, when he invited people to the White House, was it McDonald's? Just go to McDonald's and get the dinner yourself and sit in front of your Trump flags that you done spent all your
to bring somebody to the White House and cater them with fast food because, well, that's what they eat. This is who they are. From Trump on down, this is how much they think of everyone out there. We're stereotyping everyone.
But not even more fast food. Because when you're putting together events, they didn't have
don't put McDonald's in warmers. You can't.
Yeah, that food was not in warmers. They didn't even take them out, dump them into the warmers, and then get some tongue. No, this was food that hacked, because let's face it, a lot of times Secret Service will have to drive to neighboring states just to get the groceries to cook. So imagine where they had to spread out to go. Because if you place a large order, they're going to know who it's for. Yeah. And we all know, as much as Trump thinks that everybody loves him, no, everybody hates Trump. And from Trump, there is DeSantis. Now, we have two different stories for DeSantis today. Yes, Disney has officially decided to sue DeSantis, but we're going to get into that in a minute. DeSantis got a little too big for his britches, even though he still has yet to officially declare that he's running for presidency in 2024, because he's still trying to get the GOP in Florida to overturn the law, stating that if you're a governor and you're running for another office, you have to step down, because we all know DeSantis knows he can't win.
He's a ruler.
People in Florida don't even really like him at this point. So I don't know what he thinks he's going to do outside of Florida. But y'all take a look at this, because DeSantis tried to come for the United States, our longest standing ally, not one of them, the longest historically standing ally that we already betrayed once. And we learned a hard lesson about betraying them. But y'all take a look.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis decided to randomly take a jab at France.
A lot of other places around the world, they just fold the minute there's any type of adversity. I mean, can you imagine if he went into France? Would they do anything to put up a fight? Probably not.
That guy aspires to be the president of the United States. Like, where did that come from? Does he not know anything about France? Anything about, I don't know, world wars? France is a NATO member. If France was ever invaded, NATO would be obligated to come to France's aid. Right? That's what NATO is. It is an alliance. If France were attacked, all of its NATO allies would have to get involved and help. So that makes France pretty powerful, considering how many countries are part of NATO. It's also kind of relevant that France is also a nuclear power. They have 300 nuclear warheads. But according to Ron DeSantis, who just assumes that every country is weak and pathetic other than the United States, France would immediately give up if it got invaded.
Adversity coming from a man who publicly admitted that he does not pay attention to polls because leaders should get out ahead of popular opinion. But how do you know popular opinion if you don't pay attention to the polls from the populace? But yeah, right now, where France is like, once again, in my lifetime, we don't even have to go back historically. In my lifetime, France is once again like, I will burn this shit down. We will burn this shit down. We'll set the whole country on fire and start over again. They're like, we did it before, we'll do it again. We don't give a shit.
Yeah, because the last administration, remember, Donnie, the only thing he liked about France was when he went there, they had military marching. He loves that because, of course, we know he likes, North Korea and stuff like that. They use their tanks and stuff and march them in the street. He had never said anything nice about allies either. So I don't know that that's a good trend to follow, knowing that you actually need allies. You can't fight alone, even if you are the United States of America. You need, any operation we've ever had has usually involved some form, maybe not massive numbers, but some form of foreign troops to assist. We're trying to get away from pissing off countries that actually would help us. I don't know that they think we're some mega country that doesn't need anybody else. We're our own set of, forces and all that. That thinking is what Castro had in Cuba. And it was only later when he would get help from China and Russia. Isolation doesn't work unless you have a mentality of an autocrat.
But let's not forget how closely Ron DeSantis watched Trump. And now he's pulling from the same Trump playbook
Yeah.
with the lies and the not researching and the not listening. And it's like, sweetheart, that didn't work out that well for Trump. Because I think a lot of people forget that cringy campaign commercial that DeSantis did utilizing Trump, where he's reading to his child about how great Trump is and he's going to build the wall and all this other stuff.
Yeah, that was just disgusting. Yeah,
Well,
we're building a wall, kids. We're going to keep out those southern brown people.
But there's not going to be any wall on the northern border, and we're going to ban every book that would keep you from asking us why.
What about Canada? Well, they're white, aren't they? They speak French? Oh. Well, down south, they're all thugs and drug dealers. Wow. Okay, geez. That's
But y'all, guess
yeah,
what?
but they don't stereotype on the right. Nah.
Now, I know that there was a TikTok trend with the song saying, "I'm mad at Disney for lying to me." I'm going to say tonight, I'm so pleased with Disney for doing this for me and all of thee. Y'all pay attention. Now,
The MCU
is a great attorney out of the state of California, and he's about to break this down for y'all. So if you don't follow Hawk on TikTok, make sure you do.
Valid question. That's about Disney filing a lawsuit today against Ron DeSantis. From what I've read, so remember that earlier this year, last year, the state legislature at Ron DeSantis's encouragement passed a law giving Ron DeSantis the power to appoint the board that oversaw the area, the property, the land that Disney was operating on. Those people had, before last year, been picked by Disney. And Ron DeSantis was like, we're going to punish you. We're going to take that power away from you. Well, before that new board was seated, which happened this week, the previous board, which had been picked by Disney, did a whole bunch of stuff legally to completely neuter the incoming board, to basically make them powerless for 50 or 60 years. Well, the new board showed up this week. So the old board having done that to the new board, Disney was like, we're fine. This is good because we're still going to have control. When the new board showed up this week, the new board voted to nullify all of those actions from the previous board. And when the new board did that, that's when Disney was like, wrong, lawsuit time. And it's arguable whether or not the new board even had the legal authority to do what they did this week. And based on the actions of the new board, that's why Disney chose today to file their lawsuit against DeSantis, which I think they will very easily win. I haven't found a copy of the complaint yet. I've got some other work I'm doing this morning. But one thing that I want to look into is specifically what Disney is asking a trial court to give them in this lawsuit. What do they want? They've laid out an extremely compelling timeline of their actions of saying that Don't Say Gay bill is bad, which that's all they did. That's all they did. And they've had a year and a half of government harassment and retaliation since then, solely because they said something that the governor didn't like. They went woke. Woke is speech. The government can't punish you for speaking, period. Unless you're, I shouldn't make that absolute. The First Amendment is subject to regulation as every other part of the Bill of Rights is, but not for this, not for saying we think this law is bad and we support the LGBTQ community. The government can't punish you for saying that ever, period.
Okay. I had an opportunity to read the complaint, the lawsuit that Disney filed against Ron DeSantis. It's about 77 pages long. It's very much worth reading. It really is. I just Googled Disney sues DeSantis complaint, and I found the complaint at the end of a Fox Business article, PDF that I was able to download and read. They make there are 4 causes of action. Violation of the Contracts Clause from Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, violation of the Takings Clause in the 5th Amendment, violation of the Due Process Clause in the 5th and 14th Amendment, and violation of the First Amendment. So they've couched this entirely in constitutional terms. Sorry, my allergies are still flaring up. The fact section, here are the facts. The timeline that's in there is extremely damning for Ron DeSantis and the Florida State Legislature. But, and I think this is most important, that factual timeline of what the state and the governor and the state legislature did to Disney in response to saying, we don't like the Don't Say Gay bill. The entire LGBT community is welcome at Disney in Florida, which is protected speech. The factual timeline in that complaint, to me, is made 10 times more damning because woven in throughout is statements that DeSantis made and statements that state legislators made saying we are doing these things specifically to target Disney because of what they said about that bill. I mean, they just, it's admission after admission after admission after admission that, you know, from DeSantis and these state legislators saying, well, Disney chimed in with their opinion on this bill and we don't want them to do that. So we're going to pass all of this legislation and take away all these rights and benefits that the corporation has to punish them for voicing their opinion. And they all said it in public, on the record. Fuck, Ron DeSantis campaigned on this shit last year. This was part of his campaign for re-election to governor. I mean, it's an extremely well-crafted complaint. If I were Disney, I would feel very good about their chances for success. And Disney's asking the court to throw out everything that DeSantis and the state legislator has done to Disney in the last year.
And if not, they get the wrath of Grogu, because that's Disney. Yes.
Yeah, they need to leave my Disney alone. Because
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they realize how many Star Wars and Marvel fans will be at their throat.
Right.
Oh, and for those of y'all that wanted to argue with me earlier this week, when I pointed out to y'all that Meteor Man is technically a Marvel character, so he could be brought into this new cycle that we're going through. And you're like, no, Robert Townsend. And after the movie, Marvel picked it up. And there's a comic book series. He's a Marvel comic.
Yeah. Yeah. So
y'all gonna quit doubting me when it comes to my Marvel knowledge. Y'all.
Well, I said we got Blade on our side. We're gonna remember we have ABC, so that means we can send David Muir after him. We can send ESPN will go after them.
Let's not forget, all we got to do is send Storm after him.
Oh.
Him and Raphael, aka Ted Cruz, because they seem to be afraid of the weather.
Cancun cruise.
You know what? Speaking of which, I haven't been Storm for a while.
I know something that would go good if you brought the hair. There's some matching accessory.
That's what I'm saying.
I do remember a time when there was a Storm look.
And it's been a while since I've done the Storm look. I might,
It's been a while since the turquoise too, but yeah.
Just because the turquoise dye, I have to go to a particular city to get the right turquoise dye. That's why. But I'm making my way back.
Or Bengal orange during the nighttime. Oh,
Okay.
okay. But then again, we got to be careful with orange because Cleveland might think it's for them.
No, quick story time. I worked for a company where they really didn't care about my hair. I could do whatever with my hair. I could do whatever with my wardrobe. They were just happy that I was showing up to work and doing the work that I was doing. Okay. I was like their top employee, their top salesperson. They didn't care. I was going for a different look, but the look did turn out fire. Okay.
Yeah.
I decided to dye my hair and I wanted to do like, my goal was highlights, but I ended up doing a pattern in my hair and I ended up having Bengal stripes of orange in my hair.
Yes.
It was on accident, but it was
It's
wonderful
a happy accident.
Yes, because it seemed like I did it on purpose and people were like, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna just let them think that. Like
they're like, yeah, do the icky shuffle.
And it was during that time too. So I was
see, there we go. There we go. There we go. Yeah.
No crackhead.
I think even Boomer would have applauded it.
Yes. Yes. Now, as promised, I told y'all that now we love Andy Brashear down here in Kentucky. We're not truly a red state. We're actually a blue state with too many red cities. Hence the fact we have a Democratic governor and a bunch of other things are Republican because of gerrymandering, et cetera, et cetera. I can break that down to y'all on another day. But I want y'all to take a look at this. No, this is not an SNL skit. No, this is not a joke. Yes, this has really come across our TV screens. Y'all, we are not okay. Help us. Here we go.
Holly Kraft is running to be the next governor of Kentucky, and her main argument is that she will be the best person to fight wokeness in our public schools. There are many ways to define woke, but hers, according to her most recent advertisement, is woke people parachuting into classrooms to force students to identify their pronouns and learn about race.
Our schools are under attack. Woke bureaucrats parachuting in to hijack our children's future.
I know my CRTs.
Forcing woke ideology into the classroom.
I'm Gracie. I'm a she, her.
I'm Linda Blackford, the opinion columnist for the Lexington Herald-Leader, and I thought it would be a good idea to see what's really going on in schools. So I went to Greenup County High School in the northeastern corner of Kentucky. No wokeness in sight, just a lot of hardworking educators who are trying to provide the best education for their students. In this case, Greenup is trying a new approach that recognizes that not everyone wants or needs to go to college, but still has to be prepared for the future. They are putting more emphasis on career and technical education, including training for high-paying electric, automotive, welding, and healthcare jobs. In my column, I suggested that Kraft and anyone else who thinks that schools are too woke to head to Greenup, or any other school really, to see what our teachers are doing. They might actually learn something.
Now, did you catch the Willy Wonka like hairstyles but here's the thing, right? My youngest son decided college was not for him. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. He wanted to go to a trade school. He was like, I've always had a passion for this. This is what I want to do. I will be happy in this career field. Yes, we all know we have to work to pay to live in this country. Right. Do something that you're naturally good at. And yes, every career, even though I love what I do, does it get stressful? Yes. But the stress is a little bit less when you actually enjoy it. So I'm like, yeah, go for it. Now, I'm glad she centered that school because there are a lot of schools in Kentucky that they are behind the times. I have spoken with full-grown adults that have grandchildren and great-grandchildren that don't know certain books exist, don't know certain historical figures exist. They conflate the Constitution with the Declaration of Independence. Like, what wokeness is going on here?
They would all fail an immigration test.
But here's the key. There's so many tea parties here. And if you all are not familiar with tea parties, let me just give you a blanket explanation. Tea parties are a part of the LGBTQIA+ community. And when I tell you these tea parties sell out, But then you have people pretend. This is why when people ask me about certain clerks that wouldn't give marriage license, and I'm like, it's performative. It's these people that are backing her are performative.
Yeah.
Just like all of us were shocked when Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell got voted back in, because we're like, how? And when you ask people who you saw at certain rallies who were talking out, and yes, I know people will lie about who they support, but people very rarely lie about who they support when they're spending money on merch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did they get it? Like, if y'all want to know about voter fraud, come to the Commonwealth. If you want to know, have a master class on voter suppression and gerrymandering,
Tennessee.
Get to the South.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've noticed just from recent ads, and I know not everyone's seen it, the new, I know they don't have their candidate yet, their new anti-Biden run again, where the AI use of, you know, the sky's fallen, there's riots, the volcanoes have taken over the country, and, you know, fear, 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 grab your guns. The whole woke idea goes hand in hand with fear of a takeover. Who's hurting who? Like, it's getting peddled on everything, and that's why Fox is involved in peddling the fear factor of this is why guns are needed, because it goes hand in hand with these unruly cities. Well, if you got a thing called Google, you would see that in the South. That's where your violence is. These are in red states. Just look it up, people.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because they are peddling it.
Mm-hmm.
And before you all look, don't get in the comments, don't DM me going, Taz, you're reaching. No, there's a web of recordings that have come out that prove what we've been saying for years. Y'all take a look, get comfy.
So this video just surfaced of Rudy Giuliani, Carrie Lake, and Steve Bannon talking about how they suppressed the Hispanic vote during the election.
So they went through Carroll, which is all Hispanic, and they gave out little cards, and the card said, if you come to vote, make sure you have your green card because INS are picking up illegals. Oh my gosh. After the election, the Clinton Civil Rights Division investigated me. Janet Reno's coming after us. We violated civil rights. I said, Jenny, you're a lawyer. Think about it. What civil rights do we violate? They don't have civil rights.
We have rights.
All we did is prevent people who can't vote from voting. Yeah. Maybe we tricked them, but tricking is not a crime.
Yes, it is.
This is what we don't do.
Not the legal vote, the illegal vote.
Yeah, the people don't have the right to vote.
The illegal vote.
Yeah, a Hispanic illegal vote, which takes away the Hispanic legal.
Their whole tactic was to scare people because non-residents, including permanent legal residents, cannot vote in federal, state, and most local elections. Now, very specific elections allow non-citizens to vote in local elections only. We cannot vote again for federal, state, and most local elections. So basically what they were doing by going to Hispanic communities and giving misinformation is to scare people from voting. Now, these intimidation tactics at polling stations is illegal. And who knows how many people they actually deterred from voting. See, the Hispanic vote is really strong in the United States, but it's tactics like this that stop us from becoming a voting bloc that can really change things for our community.
What I have for you tonight is new. It's secret until tonight. It's exclusive. So, airing for the first time tonight are tapes I'm about to play for you. They come on the heels of something that might be familiar. Other Ted Cruz recordings that we recently reported, which showed how he himself doubted that there was hard evidence that would win in court of Trump challenging the election. And no, Trump did lose all those court challenges. So when Cruz was saying that, it turned out that what he saw as weak evidence was weak evidence. Trump lost those cases. Cruz knew it. But by January, Mr. Cruz, Senator Cruz, was not only bending to Donald Trump's plan to vote against certifying the Biden win on the 6th. Senator Cruz was actively out plotting and selling a plan in advance, as these secret tapes tonight show. Cruz was talking to one of Trump's greatest backers in overthrowing the election, Fox host Maria Bartiromo. And if you're thinking, oh, does this all relate to everything we've been living through and the recent accountability? It does. We'll get to that. But what I'm going to play you first is how he was effectively privately briefing her on what he called a mechanism to force an overthrow or disruption of Biden's win by denying the certification. So when you listen to this tape right now, remember, at this time, 4 days out from the 6th, few people knew the lengths Donald Trump's allies planned to go on January 6th, as Cruz was planning out a key part of the plot.
I think that the country deserves to have a credible assessment of these claims and what the evidence shows. And the mechanism to try to force that is denying certification on the 6th.
Forcing this reassessment, as he so dryly put it, of Biden's actual win was for Cruz one step in a larger coup plot. And that's what the next tape I'm going to play for you shows. After the violence on January 6th, there was, of course, the ongoing process of trying to overthrow the election. Cruz, early in that day, technically right before the Capitol was breached, was one of 11 senators voting to deny the certification. I should mention the majority of Republican senators didn't go that far. But that's just one thing. Then there's step 2, which you can hear yourself tonight. Again, we have evidence tonight. We're going to play it for you, and you can decide what you think of it. But in this newly exposed tape, Senator Cruz proclaims that the coup plotters would jump from denying the certification, which I showed you they tried to do, to step 2, which they didn't reach, but here it is on tape. They would just seize power, he says, and overthrow the whole election. He literally explains it that way. Basically, that they would hijack the certification and then use their own made-up fake commission to declare that the Biden win was fraudulent, and then that would decide who's inaugurated. Quote, who's inaugurated. Now, it is rare to hear the end game of the January 6 plotters confessed so plainly. Indeed, we heard one Trump official, Peter Navarro, talk about an aspect of this, the congressional sweep part, in public. We heard it on this program. It made news. It was a kind of a partial admission or confession. Now, this tape is Cruz talking in secret. Remember, this is where he doesn't think it's going to get out. He's just talking to someone who he sees as an ally in this cause, Maria Bartiromo, in advance, about overthrowing the race with this fake commission and using the claims of fraud, which, remember, on tape, Ted Cruz said were not standing up in court.
Who's deciding who gets inaugurated?
It would be the results of that commission and what they find. And if they found credible evidence of fraud that undermines confidence in the electoral results in any given state, they would report on that.
He admits it. You heard the question there. So who decides who gets inaugurated? That's what this is all about, because you have a certified winner. You have all of the courts having passed up any potential challenge to that. So at that point, it was President-elect Biden. And Cruz answers that this fake, made-up so-called commission that he and his Trump buddies were planning to try to create to bureaucratize a coup. That's what they were trying to do. That was his answer. That's how they would steal the race. And all the references to fraud and such, well, we know, A, he didn't believe in those. We already have that on tape. B, we know more importantly, the judges and the fact-finding we have in this country didn't find that there was that kind of fraud. And then 3, that's all just talk anyway, because they're literally trying to steal it for Trump. So all the words in the middle are just the words to get there. Now, I want to be clear about this, because we try to really go through and take stuff seriously with you. You can feel it in America right now. Some of this stuff is catching up with people. Now, there are also those who would look at, say, this tape with this plan and say, Ari, this sounds pretty far-fetched. I mean, this sounds unlikely to get anywhere. They might want to dismiss it. They might say to me, hey, Ari, this wasn't going to really happen. And we know it actually didn't happen. We didn't see a fake commission popped up to do this. But let me tell you this tonight. Underestimating authoritarian plans hatched at the highest levels of your government would be a mistake. This was hidden for a reason. They don't want you to know about it. They don't want you to take it seriously now. That is the democracy part. But Ted Cruz concluded that, apparently, for him, politically, making common cause with these would-be authoritarians, with those wanting to steal the election, steal your vote, overthrow American democracy for the first time, that was what he needed to do, both being seen as a Jan 6 planner, which was the public part, the certification part, but also, as we see in these tapes, using his power, his mind, his knowledge of the system to try to quite literally overthrow the person the voters picked to be inaugurated. That was his quite literal mission. This should not be underestimated or minimized, and certainly not brushed into the history and swept under the rug if we haven't even collected the full facts of this history. And that's why what we on the beat are calling these Cruz tapes are actually so damning. Keep all of that in mind, including the he knew better history of 2016, when you hear him caught on tape now, airing on TV tonight, pushing this plot.
Who's deciding who gets inaugurated?
It would be the results of that commission and what they find. And if they found credible evidence of fraud that undermines confidence in the electoral results in any given state, they would report on that.
Ted Cruz and his Trump buddies commission that they make up will decide who's inaugurated. And that shows something else that might be bad for Ted Cruz, because the Cruz tapes show that Senator Cruz broke the first rule of Coup Club, which is you don't talk about Coup Club, because this is still America. And I can tell you, and we have recent evidence of this, there are more of us for democracy in America than there are of them. So if you start talking openly about Coup Club, that ain't a left-right thing, thank goodness. You are going to be in that authoritarian minority where you probably belong. This is America. We don't have politicians stealing elections from voters. And we don't allow authoritarian, defamatory propaganda without consequences, as Fox and Mr. Carlson have been learning. Now, that network and Senator Cruz's office declined our request here on The Beat for comment on this tape and story. That offer remains open. If, having seen and heard this report, they want to further comment, we'll air that for you tomorrow. Our offer for Senator Cruz to join this program for a discussion remains open. He can come on here anytime. We can talk about that and other issues. But in a time of national reckoning, this kind of evidence speaks volumes.
Well, yes, Ari. That's who Ted is. He let the last guy trash his family. Cancun Cruz will go with who he thinks is in charge. There's not much spine back there. It's more spine on a jellyfish.
As I always tell y'all, to check the links in the description of any video that I put up. But let me read y'all just a small excerpt from tonight's blog that I put out. And like I said, it's linked in the description below. The individualism of conservatives does not allow room for actual loyalty. They are all in this together as long as those around them, when they can, profit off of them or use them for publicity. Once Trump decided to run for presidential office, the collective of the lying, ego-driven joined forces as a measure of increasing their personal brands. What the I have never been held accountable clan did not take into consideration. No one would be a firm leader. None of them are accustomed to being told no or that they are incorrect. And they are trying to feed to you all right now that each individual of them is right. And they're not. And they know that they're not. They are willing to lie to you to pad their pockets. See, they don't care about your children being killed in schools because their children aren't in those schools.
Mm-hmm. They care about the NRA's money.
Yeah, and let's not forget that recently, Meghan Trainor has a podcast that's not live like this one. It's pre-recorded, edited, it goes through, and she had the nerve to say, fuck teachers, because her and a problematic social media influencer she had on her podcast, they were in agreement. This is what they think of y'all. And you think that certain politicians, certain musicians, certain are liberal. No, they're not.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. They do not care. They just want your money, and they will take your money until you die. The GOP knows
They
how.
take their own supporters' money.
Right, but the GOP also knows how much of their own constituency they killed off with lies about COVID. So you know what they're doing now? They're putting money into just trying to convince non-Republicans to just not vote. They know they can't get non-Republicans to vote Republican. They're just trying to convince you not to vote. That's why they're pushing out Marianne Williamson and all these. They're trying to get you like, oh, get so firmly behind them because they know they're not going to get the candidacy.
Well, I'm looking towards when they're going to ramp up their propaganda ads and stuff, that they're not running on much, and we know that. They don't have a lot that they're running on that is popular. There's like nothing that's popular. So the fear ads are just going to keep on ramping up. They're going to fear their own people into you have to vote, because they're convinced that they don't need to tell their own people what they're really running for, except for fear of big cities and the southern border. And they'll probably throw in a picture of Hunter's laptop.
Well, yeah, and you know, Hunter had to meet with the DOJ today because he's been under investigation for tax fraud. And you know, the rest of us are like, well, if he committed tax fraud, lock him up.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
But right now, their propaganda, my, how the tables have turned, are all around Mr. Tuck Tuck. Take a look.
So we have some crazy news. Fox News has an opposition file on Tucker Carlson, which includes dirt on the former star, and if he attempts to attack Fox News, they're prepared to release the file. Now, I don't know about you folks, but I want to see what's inside the file. And what's interesting about this story is that Tucker Carlson hasn't said a word publicly since he left the network. So maybe he's staying silent because he knows they have this file on him. Regardless, it doesn't seem like Fox News is a great place to work, and this might get pretty crazy pretty quickly.
So Tucker Carlson is no longer with Fox News, and conservative evangelicals are handling it about as well as you would think. No need to watch Fox News anymore. They have also caved to the Satanic Squad. For the record, Tucker Carlson is not racist, xenophobic, nor a misogynist. He told the truth. Go seek the movie Nefarious if you are wondering what is happening to your world. We are in a battle with Satan. Satan hates truth, and this is why Tucker is no longer with Fox. The truth is here! His name is Jesus! I say we all stop watching Fox so Murdoch looses his woke company trying to shove down our throats transgender every single night. Yup, they got Tucker Carlson. Fox is conforming to the New World Order. Sad. This one's a journey, so some highlights. I can't believe Fox News would get rid of Tucker Carlson. Yada yada, repent, don't risk spending eternity in the lake of fire! Fox has sold their conservative Christian Republican views to the devil and the socialist, liberal, communist, democratic people. Tucker Carlson is out at Fox News. All national media outlets are controlled by Satan. Wake up! The rapture of the church is imminent. Now Tucker Carlson and Dan Bongino have both been fired. Why? Because they both spoke out openly against child sacrifice, evil, abortion, and pedophilia. Welcome to the New World Order.
Now, are they smart enough to realize that this is going to split their own vote? I mean, no Republican has the votes right now to win anything. The Republican rhetoric right now is unpopular with even the most staunch conservatives right now.
Yeah, they're likely to stay home because, number one, yeah, they've been told their whole life they don't vote liberal. So chances are they could stay home. But like I said, the whole Fox thing, we're going back to the history of Fox. Like, for those that never saw the movie Bombshell or whatever, we had the Ailes era. Fox has always operated in a shady way. And they've always had influences because they know on the conservative side, supposedly conservative, that their outlets are few compared to, liberal, unless you go into the web. But
see, see, Fox is still, excuse me, Fox is still operating as if they're the only ones. And let's take a journey. This is my fun with flags moment. We always have.
Yes.
Roger Ailes started Fox News because of Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan wanted state-run conservative television, which goes against our Constitution. But he said this idea in front of his buddy, Roger Ailes. Roger Ailes was like, oh, that's a good idea. And at the time, Fox was the only one. Now, even though Fox only captures 1% of the entirety of television ratings, streaming or otherwise, the only reason that they have the negotiating power and they're everywhere is because their viewers call in to make sure that they can get, because they tell them, they put out calls of action. Make sure you can get it on DirecTV. Make sure you can get it on Spectrum. Make sure you can get yeah. So in order to combat that, whether y'all have satellite, streaming services, cable, call them and tell them, I don't want to pay for Fox News, because you're paying for Fox News even if you don't watch it.
Yeah, entertainment. Remember, people, it's entertainment.
It's entertainment and propaganda, because that's all conservatives have ever had.
It's promoting banning books because
to trickle down economics, all he had to his credit were both of his children becoming members of the LGBTQIA plus community, which he hated. Him not knowing anything about economics, anything about politics, but he wanted to do it for his pearl necklace Gluck Gluck 3000 wife.
Yeah,
or second wife, because Nancy's not first.
And tell all the blonde hosts, raise your skirts up 2 inches.
Exactly, because the first smart home was a GE home that Nancy Reagan convinced Ronald to move into, which meant that they had to do commercials throughout the day. And this is back during the day where commercials were live. She wanted him to have this power so she could legitimize herself.
Yeah. But now they don't have Bud Light commercials anymore.
Now, before we get out of here, let's talk about Miss E. Jean Carroll and day one of the trial. Who y'all buckle up?
It's a civil case. I don't think he's required to be there. Well, are you ready for some breaking news? The judge in E. Jean Carroll's case just reprimanded Donald Trump for his Truth Social posts and threatened criminal charges. Trump went off against Carroll just moments before she was ready to testify in her rape case against him. In a brilliant move, E. Jean Carroll's attorney, Robbie Kaplan, interrupted the case to read Trump's word to the court. The E. Jean Carroll case, Miss Bergdorf Goodman, is a made-up scam, Trump wrote. The judge responded, entirely inappropriate. Keeps going. He then noted that Trump may or may not be tampering with a new source of potential liability, and I think you know what I mean. The comments appeared to reference the crime of witness intimidation, warnings Trump has faced before. Not even a day has passed in this trial, and Trump might end up in jail after all. E. Jean Carroll deserves justice. Lock him up. So, yeah, that was pretty clear that Trump has fucked around and he is now in the find out stage.
Yeah.
And to add to that, from NPR.org, E. Jean Carroll testifies in her lawsuit trial that Trump raped her. A writer suing Donald Trump took the stand Wednesday to tell jurors that the future president, I wouldn't call him the future president, but anywho, raped her after she accompanied him into a department store fitting room in 1996. I'm here because Donald Trump raped me, and when I wrote about it, he said it didn't happen. He lied and shattered my reputation, and I'm here to try to get my life back, she testified. Now, Miss Carroll admits that since that day, she has not had a romantic or sexual relationship. To this day, she can still feel him on her skin. There are multiple women who are going to testify in court how he assaulted them or harassed them or physically touched them. They're employees of Bergman that are going to testify because they now feel bad when they told this woman, hey, that's Donald Trump. He has a bunch of attorneys. And like I told somebody earlier tonight, all the shenanigans that he's done, when he used to tell people and try to intimidate them or successfully intimidate them, saying, oh, I have a team of attorneys. Now we see that this is not a solid team of attorneys, and he has wish.com attorneys. Okay. He has DHgate attorneys.
He doesn't pay them.
And, several people can corroborate the story. And the fact that he's giving the same story that a lot of men who are rapists give. Like, look at her. Would I rape her? First of all, sexual assault and rape has nothing to do with an aesthetic.
Yeah.
It has to do with power and domination. It has nothing to do with an aesthetic. It's not like, oh, pretty girls are going to be raped. No. Here's the fact that children and even babies are assaulted.
Yeah. Pedophiles don't look at cute kids. They just like the fact that they're kids. Yeah.
And because, as you can tell, Trump decided to take to Truth Social.
That's still running.
And he sticks to Truth Social, not just because we know he did finally trickle over to Twitter and it didn't go the way that he thought it was. But even Trump knows that nobody is really on Truth Social other than his sycophants. This is why he says the most egregious things. He forgets that there's other of us that are on there. And the fact that he tried to intimidate the jury, who I informed y'all yesterday, even the judge told the jurors, don't even tell each other your real names. If your name is Paul, you're going to be John this week. And then try to threaten the judge and try to sick people on the judge. And the judge is like, I'll lock you up. I don't care about a campaign.
If that's the way to stop you from typing, yes.
And this is, like I said, check out the links in the description of this video because tonight's blog, some of y'all need to be reminded of this whole No Child Left Behind participation trophy because we are seeing the results of that. Now, to round out the night, I know that I put in there the Catch Me If You Can, the Rossi edition. We'll get that tomorrow because that's multiple parts. But we do have to tackle this because, once again, MTG is putting national security at y'all.
When doesn't she? She puts animals at risk.
Yeah,
with her coats, with her jackets.
She's not even an animal. She's an aminal. Y'all take a look.
Last week, Marjorie Taylor Greene got on Twitter and released what legal experts believe was confidential information from the United States government that could result in legal action against Marjorie Taylor Greene. And after the release of this information, upon which, by the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene claims that she got the information from the U.S. Treasury Department. She went there, read this report that is not publicly available, got on Twitter, started spewing all of this stuff about the entities owned by the Biden family, specifically Hunter Biden, money that was going to these organizations and companies that he owned. She then called them a criminal enterprise, the worst criminal enterprise ever to inhabit the White House. And this did not go unnoticed by Hunter Biden's lawyers, who have now sent a letter to the Treasury Department's Inspector General asking for them to conduct an investigation into how in the hell Marjorie Taylor Greene not only got this information that she was not privy to, but how she then got on social media and blurted this all out. Not to mention the potential defamation against the Biden family. Here's what the lawyer wrote.
We write to request the Office of Congressional Ethics initiate a review of and take appropriate action as a result of Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's suspected violations of House ethics rules and standards of official conduct. Representative Greene's unethical conduct arises from her continuous verbal attacks, defamatory statements, publication of personal photos and data, and promotion of conspiracy theories about and against Robert Hunter Biden. None of these could possibly be deemed to be part of any legitimate legislative activity, as is clear from both the content of her statements and actions and the forum she uses to spew her often unhinged rhetoric. Since her election to Congress in 2020 and before, Representative Greene has engaged in steady, dogged, verbal, and defamatory attacks against Mr. Biden and members of his family. Her online statements and public appearances are neither legislative drafting, nor oversight, nor real congressional business. They are a spray of shotgun pellets of personal vitriol that are the definition of conduct that does not reflect, quote, creditably on the House. Sorry, folks. Her actions are not merely the expression of political views or private free speech because she uses her official position to disseminate them and often expresses them in official proceedings. So, that was not only, as I said, sent to the House Ethics Committee, as said in that tweet, or statement, excuse me. It was also sent to the Inspector General of the Treasury Department itself. And they've got a point. If this material that Marjorie Taylor Greene spewed out is in fact true, then she's releasing confidential information held by the United States government, which luckily Donald Trump, when he was in office, actually made that a federal crime and enhanced the penalty for it. If it's not true, and I explained this all last week on Ring of Fire, if it's not true, then that's clearly defamation and she can be sued civilly for that in civil court. So either way, Marjorie Taylor Greene should have some very big problems here. Now, the issue, of course, with writing this letter to the House Ethics Committee, excuse me, I don't know why I'm having such trouble right now speaking. But the issue with that is, of course, even if the House Ethics Committee or panel, which is not a makeup of members of the House, if they say, yes, she did wrong, she broke the law, House, you have to do something, the House isn't going to do anything. So House Ethics Panel, whatever. They're not going to do anything. They don't have the power. They would have to recommend a punishment to the House, and the House will then choose to ignore it because they don't care about holding their own accountable. But what she did here is absolutely serious. The claims that she leveled against Hunter Biden and, of course, President Biden are absolutely defamatory, in my opinion. Like, you look at what she had said last week, and again, I got a video about it over at Ring of Fire. There's no other way to slice it. This is defamation, or this is leaking classified information. Like, personally, it'd probably be better off for you, Marjorie, to take the defamation hit rather than the other hit for leaking classified info, because that'll land you in prison. The defamation will just cost you some cash. But something has to happen. We cannot continue to have this government that is completely unaccountable, right? Like, we've got the issues with Clarence Thomas in the Supreme Court right now. All of his decades of corruption being exposed, and there's literally nothing we can do. Marjorie Taylor Greene leaking confidential information, leaking private personal information about a private U.S. citizen, Hunter Biden. Because no matter how much the Republicans want to talk about him, he has not made himself public. Therefore, he is not a public figure. They thrust him into that spotlight. They're leaking his personal information. And that's not okay, even if what he did is illegal, and it'll all come out in the wash. He is being investigated. I got no problem with the investigation. But what they're doing to him during this is not legal, is the point. We need more than just an investigation into Marjorie Taylor Greene. We know what she did because she did it publicly. Like, we're beyond the investigation. It's been done, technically, because she tweeted it out. What we need are charges against her. But because Republicans control the House, that'll never happen. Because our government is unaccountable to anyone. We do not have the power to hold these people accountable except for in elections. And remember that, because 2024 seems like a world away.
Okay. That is incorrect. We hold the power right now. I have told you all this several times across several social media platforms. When it comes to the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court of the United States, you can contact your congresspeople to get them impeached. Number one. Number two, congresspeople can be impeached and be removed also. The power does not just lie within elections. There are checks and balances. You do not have to wait for their term to go out and hope that there's a viable candidate. And I wish people would stop pushing forth that incorrect information. I'm not going to.
I mean, we always promote voting because it is important, but to say that it's the only avenue, yeah. I mean, if this was election time, you're trying to promote, hey, go to the ballots. Let's make sure our voice is heard. That's different from thinking that's your only way, is what you're saying, and a lot of people just don't know. So, yeah, you got to spread the word.
You definitely
let them know what they can do, especially in the Commonwealth.
Right. You voted people in. You can get them out. They work for you.
I'm about to vote crackhead out.
He about to get something out. But here's the thing. Nobody has a problem going to a restaurant, going to a retail establishment, or going to a school telling people, I pay your salary, you have to do that. The customer is always right. Where is that same energy for politicians who you literally pay to sustain?
Right. But then you have the nasty people out there who will go into stores and do something and tell someone, clean that up. That's your job. Yeah, but there are avenues that people can take to try and take action.
Yep.
So,
well, as always, you guys, thank you all for joining us. Make sure you check out the link in the bio. Final thoughts on the night, Chris?
yeah, we're in Taurus season. So, we got Grogu over there, sporting the Grogu, sporting the Taurus. It's birthday season for everybody. Aside from that, yeah, that's the positive part. The negative part is what's happening on the right, as usual. Bunch of party poopers. They're just pooping on our country. So, except for crackhead.
Who decided to make an appearance?
We don't have peanut butter here.
You and your biscuit, get off my couch.
The dog park's closed. Aside from that, try and break away from some of this and catch some good stuff on streaming. There's always stuff on there. Yeah, make sure you all are taking care of yourself. Self-care, as always. That's what we promote, because we are living in dangerous times. There's a lot of craziness going on, but it starts with you taking care of yourself. You can't do much if your health is bad. So take care of yourself, people.
And as always, each one reach one, each one teach one. And I'm going to leave you all with a combination of what our resident Ginger just said. And of course, because it's Wednesday night, a little bit of sports. So till next time.
All right, this is a story that I believe the mainstream press has intentionally misled the public on. This is Andrew Tolles. It is a story of sports, mental health, and the United States of America. Tolles was originally drafted by the Marlins in the 2010 draft. He chose to play college ball at Tennessee, made all SEC freshman team, but then was dismissed. He would transfer to Chippewa College, that's him right there, to junior college. He would again be dismissed. Though in 2012, Tampa Bay saw some potential. They drafted him and he became minor leaguer of the year. It paid off. Unfortunately, more problems would surface for him. he would be benched, he would go on the inactive list, and then he would be released by the organization. Though we would later learn why. He struggled with anxiety and it completely disrupted his daily routine. That summer, he took a job working at a local Kroger in his hometown. He would get up at 3:30 a.m., worked in the frozen food section, in at 4, though the desire to play baseball never ceased. Andrew Friedman was an executive with the Rays. He would then go to the Dodgers and really believed in Andrew Toles, signed him to a minor league deal, and then his coming out party was in 2016, hit over 360 in the playoffs, became that outfielder the Dodgers needed. In 2017, he started off well until a torn ACL sidelined his season. In 2018, he would play in less than 20 games. The following year, he would never report to the team, and many wondered why. His father would later tell Bob Nightingale of USA Today he keeps running. He's in a state of paranoia. He's running from people. In 2019, he'd crash his car in Phoenix and be found wandering the desert. His family would place him in a mental health facility. The Dodgers would as well, though he would always be released. When he demanded that he come back home to Atlanta, his uncle and father went to Arizona and he refused to go with them. After being admitted to a Phoenix hospital, he would learn the diagnosis: schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Then in 2020, he would be given a trespassing charge because he was found sleeping behind the Key West airport. All of this to say, the Dodgers signed him to another contract that will pay him $0, but guarantees him medical coverage. When players like Andrew Toles retire or are away from the game, they shouldn't lose health coverage. Where I think the press frames the story wrong is we are a nation with the largest GDP, yet we say, fend for yourself. Have your insurance tied to your employment. When economists, researchers all agree this would save us money. But how much money if we adopted that model? Well, folks should not have to ration insulin or any of this. So yes, it's a feel-good story, but we are not acknowledging the very issue.